The great hall of the Galactic Council was silent. Hundreds of species sat in their shining seats, their faces lit by the pale blue light of the chamber. No one spoke. The screen at the center showed the last signal from a colony world named Erebos 9. Static, smoke, and a voice broken by fear. They came from the dark. No mercy, no warning. Please tell them. Justice must speak. Then the screen went black. Only the sound of static remained. Admiral Elena Reyes of Earth sat among the other delegates. Her eyes did not move from the empty screen. Around her, voices began to rise, excuses, questions, and endless talk. The signal is unclear. Perhaps it was a reactor failure. We must wait for confirmation. They spoke like they always did, careful, polite, afraid. Reyes could almost predict every word. She had heard the same tone before, years ago, when the Cathara genocide was discussed in this same hall. Thousands had died back then, and the Council had done nothing. They had called it an internal dispute. Reyes remembered the burning images from that day, the screams, the smoke, the silence that followed. Humanity had sent help, but by the time they arrived, only ashes remained. She had sworn never to see that happen again. Now it was happening again. She stood slowly, her uniform dark against the glowing walls. "Counselors," she said, her voice steady. "A whole world has gone silent. We cannot keep waiting. We must act." A tall alien delegate with silver skin raised his head. "Admiral Reyes, the Council does not act on emotion. We act on proof." "Proof?" she repeated softly. "What more proof do you need than silence?" But the hall ignored her. The discussion turned to trade routes, fuel limits, and border laws. The tragedy of Erebos 9 was fading into the background like a storm behind a closed door. Reyes sat down again, her hands clenched tight. The blue light reflected in her eyes, cold and distant. Around her, the galaxy chose to look away. Hours later, as the meeting ended, she walked through the long glass corridor that looked out into space. The stars stretched forever, quiet, endless, and uncaring. Her reflection looked back at her, tired but burning with something fierce inside. A message flashed across her wrist display. It was from Commander Holt, her second officer aboard the human flagship TNS Valiant. "Admiral, we found fragments of the colony's data beacon. I think you should see this." She didn't hesitate. "Send it." A small hologram appeared, the surface of Erebos 9 recorded from orbit. The cities were gone. Entire regions were burned to glass. The energy readings were strange, not plasma, not nuclear, but something new, something cruel. "What did this?" Reyes asked quietly. Holt's voice came through low and grim. "No idea, ma'am. But it wasn't pirates. This was clean, fast, precise." Reyes closed the hologram. The stars outside the window suddenly looked darker. She whispered to herself, "They said it was over after Cathara. They said no one would do this again." Then her wrist display blinked again. A message marked "Top priority from Earth Command." "Admiral Reyes, you are to observe only. No engagement without Council approval. Await further orders." Her jaw tightened. Those were the same words she had heard so many times before. Observe only. Wait for proof. Stay civilized. She looked out at the silent stars and whispered, "That's what they said last time." Hours later, the Valiant drifted through deep space. The ship's windows showed nothing but darkness, broken only by distant light. In the command deck, Reyes watched her crew in silence. They were young, brave, and restless. They wanted to act. They wanted justice. Commander Holt approached quietly. "Orders, ma'am." Reyes gave a faint smile. "We follow protocol. And for now." He looked at her and nodded, but his eyes showed the same question that burned in hers. How long can we keep watching? The communication officer turned suddenly. "Admiral!" "Picking up a new signal. Same region as Erebos 9. It's faint, but it's..." "Repeating. Put it through." The signal crackled over the bridge speakers, static mixed with a faint, broken voice. "If anyone hears this, they're coming." The sky burns. They're nothing." Silence again. The officer looked up, frightened. "That's less than 1 light hour from the last colony." Reyes closed her eyes for a moment, her mind sharp and cold. The galaxy was about to see another world burn while the council waited to confirm. She stood, her voice calm but heavy. "Plot a course to that system. I want to see it with my own eyes." "Ma'am," Command said. "I know what Command said." She looked out at the stars. "But we can't wait for permission to care." The Valiant's engines flared blue as it turned toward the unknown. Behind them, the council hall lights dimmed for the night session. Their debates already moving to other matters, but far from those polished chambers. A silent ship carried one human's choice, to see the truth the galaxy refused to face. In the quiet of the bridge, Reyes whispered to herself, "If the galaxy stays silent, then humanity will speak." The stars ahead flickered like warnings in the dark. No one knew it yet, but this was the moment history would remember. The moment before justice awoke, the silence before the storm, the human flagship, TNS Valiant, moved through the darkness between stars, silent as a shadow. Its silver hull caught the faint light of distant suns, shining like a blade waiting to be drawn. Inside, the crew worked quietly. The air was tense, not with fear, but with waiting. Admiral Elena Reyes stood on the bridge, her hands behind her back, her eyes fixed on the main screen. Ahead lay the Arevos sector, the region where the colony had vanished. She had seen death before, but this time felt different. This was not war. This was erasure. Commander Holt walked up beside her, a tablet in his hand. "Ma'am, we're approaching the coordinates. Long-range scans show debris." "Lots of it," Reyes nodded. "Any signs of survivors?" "None so far." The words hung in the air like a weight. Reyes exhaled slowly. "Bring us closer." As the ship entered the dead system, the stars around them seemed to fade. Dust clouds floated where cities once stood. Broken satellites drifted in silence. Pieces of metal, glass, and bone turned slowly in the black. The Valiant scanners showed shapes that once were homes, now only ruins. Reyes whispered, "All of this, in one night?" Holt's voice was low. "Yes, ma'am. Whatever hit them was fast. We found no distress beacons. No escape pods launched." Reyes looked at the readings. The energy signatures were strange, sharp, unnatural. They didn't match any known weapons. "Run a full analysis," she said. As Holt walked away, Reyes stayed by the window. The cold beauty of space stared back at her. It reminded her of something she had tried to forget, the Cathara massacre, years ago. She still remembered the transmission that day, a burning world, and a teacher's last message. "If the galaxy stays silent, then the dead will have no voice." Reyes closed her eyes. She could still hear that voice at night. Back then, humanity had begged the Council to act. They had sent reports, evidence, and pleas. The Council had answered with silence. And so, the Cathara people were gone. Reyes had promised herself she would never be silent again. "Admiral," Holt called, breaking her thoughts. "You need to see this." He showed her a hologram of the colony's defense satellites. They had been destroyed, but not by missiles or plasma. The metal had been melted by focused energy beams that left clean, perfect cuts. "Who has this kind of weapon?" Reyes asked. "No one we know," Holt replied. But here's the strange part. The power readings match the kind used by Tyrax ships." Reyes turned sharply. "The Tyrax Dominion? That's impossible. The Council signed peace with them a decade ago." "Yes, ma'am. But their signature is here." Reyes stared at the data. The Tyrax were a proud and secretive species, known for their ruthless expansion centuries ago. If they had returned to war, it would mean disaster for the galaxy. She sent a report to Earth Command immediately, including the data. Hours later, the reply came. "Your findings are unconfirmed. Maintain observation only." "Await Council review." Reyes read the message twice, then sighed. "Observation only." Again, Holt looked frustrated. "They'll keep waiting until the next world burns." Reyes nodded slowly. "And when it does, they'll still call it an accident." Later that night cycle, the ship was quiet. Most of the crew had gone to rest, but Reyes remained awake in her quarters. She looked at an old photo on her desk. Her family on Earth, smiling beside a blue sea. She hadn't seen them in years. A small device on her desk blinked, a message from her old mentor, General Stone, now retired. The message was short. Elena, I hear what happened. The Council will not act. Be ready. The shadows are moving again. Her heart beat faster. She knew what he meant. General Stone had once told her that humanity must always be ready for the day the galaxy looks away, because that would be the day evil moves unseen. She opened the ship's log and began recording. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with quiet fire. Log entry. Erevos 9 destroyed. No survivors. Cause unknown, but signs point to Tyrax technology. Council remains silent. Earth Command has ordered no action, but I will not forget. The galaxy once ignored the Cathara. We cannot repeat that mistake. If justice sleeps, then humanity must wake it. She ended the recording. For a moment, the hum of the ship was the only sound. Then, suddenly, the alarm broke the silence. Red lights flashed. Holt's voice echoed through the intercom. Admiral! New readings. Multiple warp signatures entering the system. Unknown origin. Reyes rushed to the bridge. Show me! On the screen, several dark shapes appeared at the edge of the system. Massive ships, angular and silent. Their hulls reflected no light, but their engines glowed faint red. Are they responding to hails? No, ma'am. They're not sending any signal at all. Reyes watched the shapes moving closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. That's them. The ones who burned Erevos. One of the alien ships turned, its weapons charging. Holt shouted, Incoming energy surge! Shields up! Reyes ordered. The Valiant shook as a beam of light flashed past, missing by only a few kilometers. The enemy ships didn't pursue. They fired once, then vanished into faster-than-light jump space. Gone as quickly as they came. The bridge fell silent again. Holt looked at her. They're testing us, ma'am. Seeing if we'll fight back, Reyes stared at the empty space where they had been. Then they'll have their answer soon. Her voice was low, steady, and cold as steel. Prepare the ship. Send encrypted message to command. They are here, and we are done watching. The crew looked at her, understanding what she meant. The time for silence was ending. Outside, the stars shone faintly over the ruins of Erevos 9. The shadows had returned. But this time, humanity was ready to face them, and somewhere far away, deep under the moons of Titan, a hidden signal began to awaken. The first spark of something the galaxy had forgotten. The shadow of the past was rising again. The TNS Valiant floated in the darkness like a lone guardian. The crew moved quietly, still shaken by what they had seen. The enemy ships had appeared and vanished without a word, leaving behind only fear and questions. Admiral Elena Reyes stood on the bridge, watching the empty void where the attackers had been. Her reflection glimmered faintly on the glass. She felt the silence pressing down, heavy and cold. Commander Holt stepped beside her. No response from command, ma'am. They received our report, but they're still deciding what to do. Reyes closed her eyes. Deciding, she repeated softly. While others burn, Holt hesitated. What are your orders? Reyes turned to face her crew. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. And we go home. A few officers looked surprised. Back to Earth? One asked. No, Reyes said. Home is wherever justice still matters. Set course for Titan Base. The Valiant turned, its engines glowing blue. It vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving behind the dead system and the ghosts of Erevos 9. During the long journey, Reyes barely slept. She reviewed every piece of data, energy readings, ship designs, movement patterns. Everything pointed to one truth. The Tyrax Dominion was back, and this time they were hiding behind the Council's silence. She knew the Council would deny it. They always did. But humanity had learned a hard lesson. Never trust silence. After days in transit, the Valiant dropped out of warp near Saturn. The giant planet filled the view, wrapped in its golden rings. Hidden beneath its largest moon, Titan, was something even more powerful than anyone outside Earth Command knew. A secret fleet. Identification confirmed, said the communications officer. Welcome home, Valiant. Access granted. As the ship descended into the orange haze of Titan's atmosphere, massive hangar doors opened below the surface. What looked like ice and rock split apart, revealing rows of metal structures glowing with blue light. Inside were hundreds of ships, cruisers, destroyers and carriers, all silent waiting. Commander Holt stared at the sight. "I thought this place was a myth," he whispered. Reyes gave a faint smile. So did most of the galaxy. They landed smoothly inside the largest hangar. The moment the airlock sealed, officers and engineers in dark uniforms saluted the Admiral. The logo on their shoulders read, Earth Defense Command, Black Division. An old man walked toward her, tall, broad-shouldered and scarred. His voice was deep and steady. "Welcome back, Admiral Reyes. It's been a long time." She smiled slightly. "General Stone, I got your message." He nodded. "And you came." "That tells me you already know." Reyes followed him through the steel corridors of the base. The walls were lined with holomaps, red lights marking colonies gone silent. "How many?" she asked. "4 confirmed," Stone said. Erebos 9 was not the first. 2 outposts near the border went dark weeks ago. The Council covered it up. Reyes stopped walking. "The Council knew?" "They always know," Stone said bitterly. "They just prefer peace on paper over truth in blood." He led her into a massive command chamber. In the center floated a projection of the Tyrax Dominion border, highlighted in red. "We've tracked their fleet movements," Stone continued. "They're using old mining lanes to move unseen. The same ones we helped them map during the peace talks." Reyes stared at the projection. "So they used our trust as their cover." "Exactly." General Stone turned to her. His expression hardened. "Do you remember Operation Justice?" Reyes nodded slowly. "It was shut down 20 years ago." He smiled faintly. "We didn't shut it down. We buried it. And now we're bringing it back." He tapped a code on the console. The lights dimmed, and a new message appeared on the main screen. Activation code Justice 7. Status Humanity Awakens. The base roared to life. Engines hummed, power cores flared, and ships began to move for the first time in years. Dozens of human warships, sleek, powerful, silent, lifted from their docks. Commander Holt watched in awe. "It's real," he whispered. "The hidden fleet." Reyes looked at the ships, her heart heavy with both pride and sorrow. "We built them in secret," she said. "For a day we hoped would never come." Stone's voice was steady, and now it has. The control room filled with reports. Crews returning from deep stations. Supply ships refueling. Weapons being loaded. The air was alive with purpose. Reyes stood at the center, her presence commanding. "We cannot strike first," she said. "But we will not stand by while worlds die." Stone nodded. "Agreed. But make no mistake, Admiral. Once we move, there's no going back. The Council will call us outlaws." Reyes looked straight at him. "Then they can call us whatever they want. The dead don't care about politics." For a long moment, the room was silent except for the hum of engines. Then Stone raised his hand in salute. "Then it begins. Operation Justice is active." The Titan base was alive with energy. Ships lifted from their docks one by one, their engines glowing blue against the dark orange sky. The sound of thunder rolled through the metal tunnels as humanity's secret fleet prepared for war. Admiral Elena Reyes stood on the command deck of the TNS Valiant, her eyes steady and calm. Around her, officers worked fast, checking systems, aligning weapons, and confirming jump routes. The time for silence was over. General Stone appeared on the main screen from the Titan command room. His voice was strong, clear, and filled with purpose. "All units, you know why we are here? The Tyrax Dominion has killed in shadows. The Council hides behind words, but humanity will not hide. Today, we speak for every world that died in silence." The fleet stood ready, 15 human strike groups spread across deep space. Each carried the flag of Earth, each armed for war. Reyes gave the final order. "Activate jump drives. Set coordinates for the Erebos border." The stars blurred, and in a flash of white light, the fleet disappeared into the void. Moments later, they emerged at the edge of Tyrax space. Before them hung a massive system, 3 suns, 8 planets, and a chain of warships guarding the outer ring. The Tirax ships were black and angular, like blades forged from night itself. "Enemy fleet detected," said Commander Holt. "At least 200 ships." Reyes looked at the screen without fear. "Then they're outnumbered." The bridge crew smiled faintly. They knew her words weren't about numbers. They were about conviction. Reyes stood tall. "Open channel. Broadcast to all frequencies." The communications officer nodded. "Channel open." Reyes spoke slowly, every word like thunder across the stars. "To the Tirax Dominion, you destroyed Erebos 9. You erased its people. You thought silence would protect you, but humanity has heard their cries. You wanted a quiet galaxy? Then hear this. This time justice speaks." Her voice echoed through every ship in the fleet. The crew cheered, their fear melting into determination. Then Reyes gave the final command. "Fleet, advance!" The first human salvo hit like lightning. Railguns fired from thousands of kilometers away, streaking across space in glowing arcs. Tirax ships answered with beams of red light, slicing through the darkness. The battle began. The Valiant dove through the storm of energy fire, its shields flaring bright blue. Holt called out, "Enemy cruisers on the left flank." "Target them," Reyes ordered. "All weapons free." Torpedoes launched in waves, guided by artificial intelligence. They weaved through the enemy fire and struck true. Explosions rippled through the void. One of the Tirax warships broke apart, its hull burning like a falling star. But the Tirax fought fiercely. Their ships moved in tight formation, silent and deadly. One beam hit the Valiant's shields, shaking the ship. Alarms screamed across the bridge, shields at 60%. Holt shouted. "Hold steady," Reyes said calmly. "We've been through worse." The human fleet pressed forward. Smaller destroyers darted between enemy lines, striking fast and disappearing into debris fields. Carriers launched drone wings that filled the space with fire. Each explosion lit the darkness like a heartbeat of war. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched the battle through live feeds. In their grand hall, diplomats and ambassadors argued in panic. "They've gone mad," one shouted. "Humanity is breaking the peace." Another replied, "Peace? You call silence peace? Look at what they're fighting against." Even among the council, something was changing. For the first time, some saw the truth. Humanity wasn't fighting for conquest. They were fighting because no one else would. Back on the battlefield, the Tirax flagship emerged. A massive dreadnought, 3 times larger than the Valiant. Its black hull gleamed, and its weapons charged with red light. Holt's voice tensed. "Admiral, the dreadnought's targeting us." "Good," Reyes said. "Let them try." The enemy fired. A beam of pure energy struck the Valiant, tearing across its shields. The deck shook violently. Sparks flew, shields down to 30%. Reyes held her ground. "Aim all main cannons. Lock on that dreadnought's reactor." "Target locked." She raised her hand. "Fire." The Valiant unleashed everything, railguns, torpedoes, and kinetic strikes all at once. The combined blast hit the Tirax flagship square in the core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then light burst through the ship's hull, and the dreadnought exploded in a storm of flame. The crew erupted in cheers. Holt turned to her. "That's a kill, Admiral." But Reyes only nodded. Her face was calm, her voice steady. "We're not done. Not until they're all gone." Hours passed, and slowly the battle turned. One by one, Tirax ships broke formation and fled into jump space. The last of their resistance crumbled under the relentless strike of humanity's fleet. Silence returned, but this time it was the silence of victory. General Stone's voice came through the comms. "All fleets report success. The Tirax line is broken. Casualties are minimal." Reyes finally allowed herself to breathe. "Order the fleet to stand down. Begin search for survivors. I want every escape pod found, even theirs." Holt looked surprised. "Even Tirax?" Reyes nodded. "Yes, justice isn't revenge. We'll show them what the Council forgot, what civilization really means." As the smoke of battle faded, the stars came back into view, quiet and endless, but no longer empty. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy had listened. In the distance, the wreckage of the Tirax dreadnought drifted through space like a dying ghost. Reyes watched it quietly and whispered to herself, "For Erebos. For the Cathara. For every world that died waiting for justice." The Valiant's lights flickered softly, and its engines began to cool. The storm had passed, but its echo would change the stars forever. This was the day the galaxy stopped doubting humanity, the day justice spoke, and the silence finally broke. The war was over. The Tyrax fleet was gone, scattered and broken across the stars. What once was terror now drifted as silent wrecks in the void. But victory did not bring peace. It brought questions. Admiral Elena Reyes stood inside the Erebos 9 ruins, where it all began. She wore a sealed suit, walking through the ashes of what used to be a colony full of life. Her boots left marks in the black dust that had once been streets. Around her, engineers and soldiers moved carefully, scanning the ground and collecting samples. The air was still toxic from the old attack. Reyes stopped in front of a half-buried sign. The letters were broken, but one word remained clear. "Home," she whispered. They never had a chance. Commander Holt came up behind her, carrying a small scanner. "Admiral, we found something strange. Energy traces. They don't match any known Tyrax weapons." Reyes turned sharply. "Show me." He projected the readings. They showed radiation patterns, something artificial, deliberate, but not purely destructive. Could it be a containment field? She asked. Holt frowned. "More like suppression. It's like they wanted to silence the planet, not just destroy it." Reyes looked out at the horizon, a dark, burned desert under a grey sky. "Silence the planet," she repeated softly. "They didn't just kill. They erased." Later, aboard the TNS Valiant, Reyes faced the live broadcast of the Galactic Council. For the first time since the war began, they had called her to speak. The giant holographic chamber was filled with the voices of hundreds of species. Some stared at her with anger, some with fear, and a few with quiet respect. The High Chancellor, a tall being with crystalline eyes, spoke first. "Admiral Reyes of Earth, the Council recognizes your actions led to the destruction of the Tyrax Dominion. But you violated interstellar law. You attacked without authorization." Reyes did not flinch. "Authorization?" she said calmly. "While you debated, billions died. You call that law. I call it cowardice." The chamber filled with murmurs. The Chancellor raised a hand. "Your fleet's actions destabilized half the outer rim. You risked war with every major power." Reyes stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "No, I ended a war you refused to see. The Tyrax killed without warning. They silenced worlds, and you called it containment. You hid behind your rules. We didn't fight for conquest. We fought because someone had to." For a moment, no one spoke. Then a soft voice came from another delegate, a small, blue-skinned alien who represented the Cathara, the species once destroyed years ago. "She is right. We remember when the Council waited. And we died waiting." The hall grew silent. The words carried weight that no law could erase. Reyes lowered her head slightly. "We didn't fight for glory. We fought so no one else would vanish into silence. Humanity acted because the galaxy forgot what justice meant." The Chancellor hesitated. Then he said, "Your fleet will stand trial. You may have saved lives, Admiral, but the law must decide your fate." Reyes looked him in the eyes. "Then let the law finally speak truth. I'll face your judgment, but so should those who stayed silent." Days later, the trial began. The council chambers were filled with crowds from across the galaxy. News channels called it the judgment of humanity. Reyes stood alone at the center. No defense lawyers, no bodyguards, only truth. The prosecutor began, showing images of destroyed Tyrax ships, cities in flames, and the human fleet advancing. "This," he said, "is what happens when a single species believes it can act above the council." Reyes listened quietly. When it was her turn, she asked for one thing: to show the recovered recordings from Erebos 9. The lights dimmed. The screens came alive. The final moments of the colony filled the chamber, children screaming, skies burning, and the last voice of a dying man saying, "Tell them." Justice must speak. When the video ended, the silence in the hall was heavy. No one could look away. Reyes spoke softly. "You ask what gives us the right to act. That voice does. Every silence we ignored gives us that right. Humanity didn't break peace. We broke fear, her words echoed. The council members looked at one another, shaken. The Chancellor finally stood. Admiral Reyes, this council finds you guilty of unauthorized engagement. Gasps filled the room. He continued, but not of wrongdoing. The law must evolve. The silence you broke has reminded us all of what justice means. Humanity will not be punished. It will be heard. The chamber erupted, some in outrage, others in applause. Reyes closed her eyes. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She only whispered, then maybe they finally listened. Outside, the galaxy began to change. New laws were written. Laws that protected colonies, that punished those who killed in the dark. For the first time, the word justice carried meaning again. The human fleet returned home as heroes, though none called themselves that. They had seen too much, lost too many. In her cabin, aboard the Valiant, Reyes sat alone, looking at the stars. The silence of space was back, peaceful, not empty. Commander Holt entered quietly. "We did it, ma'am," Reyes nodded. "We reminded them," he smiled. "What now?" She looked out the window, where distant galaxies shimmered like old memories. "Now," she said softly, "we wait for the next silence. And when it comes, humanity will answer again." The stars shone brighter than before, not because the war was over, but because someone had dared to speak when no one else would. And so ended the trials on the ruins, not of guilt or revenge, but of remembrance. The galaxy would never forget the day humanity's voice rose above the silence and declared, "This time, justice speaks." Months had passed since the war. The stars, once filled with fire and battle, were quiet again. But this time, the silence was not born from fear. It was peace. Across the galaxy, the name Admiral Eleanor Reyes had become more than a story. To some, she was a hero. To others, a warning. But to humanity, she was the voice that had spoken when no one else dared to. On Earth, cities glittered under calm skies. Children played without knowing the sound of sirens. The world was healing, slowly learning to live again. Yet far beyond the home world, in the dark reaches of space, the TNS Valiant still drifted, not as a warship now, but as a symbol. Its hull carried scars of battle, but its lights burned steady. Inside, Admiral Reyes stood before the main viewport, watching the stars pass like rivers of light. Commander Holt walked in quietly. "Ma'am, we've received a new transmission from the Council." Reyes didn't turn. "Another meeting?" Holt smiled faintly. "Not this time. It's a message of gratitude. They've announced the creation of a new division, the Galactic Justice Network. It'll monitor colonies, stop genocide, and protect silent worlds." Reyes raised an eyebrow. "Justice Network," she repeated. "Interesting," Holt nodded. "They named it after you. The Reyes Protocol. It gives any fleet the right to act when a world is in danger, even without Council approval." For a long moment, Reyes said nothing. Her reflection in the glass looked older but calm. "I didn't do it for that," she said softly. "I know," Holt replied. "But it means something, Ma'am. You changed how the galaxy listens." Reyes turned, her gaze sharp but kind. "Maybe, but change is never permanent. Silence always tries to come back." Later, she walked through the ship's corridors. The crew greeted her with quiet respect. They were no longer soldiers of war, but guardians of peace. In the cargo bay, engineers were rebuilding a small exploration shuttle. Their next mission wasn't battle, but discovery. Reyes stopped beside them. "Where to next?" she asked. One young engineer smiled. "Sector 12, Admiral. There's a planet there that hasn't sent a signal in years. The Council asked us to check." She looked at the bright faces of the crew. They reminded her of the colonists of Erebos 9, hopeful, full of dreams. "Then make sure they're not alone," she said. "Yes, Ma'am." That night, the stars outside were brighter than usual. The ship's AI played soft static through the speakers, the same frequency once used for distress signals. Reyes listened quietly, her eyes closed. Every burst of static sounded like a whisper, the echoes of the ones who had been lost. Sometimes she thought she could still hear the voice from Erebos 9. "Tell them, Justice must speak, and it had. Across the galaxy, things began to change. The Cathara people rebuilt their cities, no longer in fear. The Tirac survivors, now prisoners of peace, were questioned, and what they revealed changed everything. They said the attack on Erevos 9 had not been random. Someone had ordered it, not the Tyrac's warlords, but a secret faction within the council itself. A group that wanted to keep humanity weak and isolated. The revelation spread like wildfire. Worlds protested. The council shook. Justice, once only a word, now demanded truth. Reyes was called again to testify, not as an accused, but as a witness, standing once more before the council. She faced the same chamber where she had once been judged. The High Chancellor spoke. Admiral Reyes, the evidence you uncovered has revealed corruption within our own ranks. How do you wish to proceed? Reyes looked around the hall. The same walls, the same light, but this time the faces were different. They were listening. Proceed, she said softly. You proceed by remembering. Justice isn't a weapon. It's a promise. Break it and silence returns. Keep it and the stars stay bright. The Chancellor bowed his head. And humanity. She smiled faintly. Humanity will keep listening. We learned the hard way what silence costs. When she returned to the Valiant, the crew was waiting. News of the Council's reform had spread. Across space, new colonies sent messages, not of fear, but of thanks. The ship's communication deck played a recording. It was from a young girl on a distant colony. Her voice was small but full of hope. Thank you, Admiral Reyes. Because of you, we're not afraid anymore. Reyes closed her eyes, letting the words wash over her. That's all the reward I'll ever need, she whispered. As the Valiant drifted past the edge of known space, Reyes stood once more at the viewport. Holt joined her. Ma'am, what if someday the silence returns? She smiled gently. Then we'll speak again, he nodded. Together? Always. The stars reflected in her eyes like tiny fires, reminders of the voices that had once been lost. Reyes raised her hand toward the stars and whispered, For Erevos. For every world that waits in silence, humanity hears you. The engines flared to life, and the Valiant turned toward the unknown, not as a ship of war, but as a messenger of hope. Far away, in the black ocean of space, a faint signal began to pulse, slow, steady, and human. It was not a distress call. It was a promise. If you are out there, you are not alone. And with that signal, the silence of the galaxy was broken once more, not by war, but by the voice of a species that had learned to listen, to fight, and to forgive. Humanity had spoken once, and the stars would never forget the echo, because even in the vast dark, their words still lived. This time justice speaks,